All right, let's get going. This is Lovejoy. I'm with the EOS Network Foundation, and we're today getting together to talk DAO adoption, how DAOs can thrive in the next market cycle. And we are joined by a pretty excellent panel of guests from all over the place here. So we're going to get some introductions. I'll just go around the room and call you out. If you could give a brief introduction, that would be wonderful. And tell us a little bit about the DAO you represent. We can get into more depth a little bit later on. Let's start with Amanda, since I probably am the least familiar with you and your project. I'd love to have you jump on the mic first, please. Oh, Dream DAO.
Of course. Yes. Hi. Thanks for having us. I'm here with Sean and Marco. He's in the DreamDAO Twitter. Yes, I'm working with DreamDAO. I was onboarded in the DAO 2 years ago as a voting builder, as a voting member. So DreamDAO is training, funding, and mentoring Gen Z leaders, 15 to 20 years old. So high schoolers, Gen Z who are in gap years or starting college, so they can learn about Web3 and develop the skills necessary to leverage the space, the ecosystem, and also regenerate the earth. So we are really fan of the solar punk movement and the regenerative finance uh, systems in the Web3 space. And we have been giving the tools for these Gen Z leaders so they can have all the experience they need to get the knowledge and the skills so they can build tools, DAOs, communities that will help us to thrive, as a Web3 community and also like in the earth in general. So that's what we are doing. And each season lasts 6 months and we have different leaders. That's how we have been dealing with decentralization. So for this season, Sean and I are like leading the operational stuff, being like the co-stewards of the DAO and advocating for our amazing community that is made of builders who are these 15 to 20-year-old leaders and also champions who are older, more experienced guides in the Web3 space. So we have this intergenerational community who is always building with each other and helping each other to just, make this community even better.
Great. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Sean, did you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me here. Excited to be a co-steward along with Amanda at DreamDAO. And, just like her, I've been there since its inception as a voting member, as a champion rather than a builder, which were kind of thought of as the mentors of the Web3 builders coming in to the DAO. And yeah, I was lucky to have kind of found out about the building in the foundations of DreamDAO in the beginning in early 2021 when I was just messing around with DAOs and had been in the space for a couple of years up to that point and was attending NFT NYC and had just finished my studies. And our friend Gary Shang that had been part of Civics Unplugged, which is kind of the parent organization that helped build DreamDAO, right? And so it's been quite a ride the last 2 years, getting to meet young builders like Amanda from all over the world. And yeah, currently right now I'm in Bangalore, India, spending some time with some builders that I was lucky enough to meet through DreamDAO and, just all the synergies that have come from that. And then after, yeah, it's been amazing. And yeah, happy to be here, happy to learn more about DAOs on EOS and all the rest of the initiatives in this space. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. Glad you're here. Very cool. The intergenerational focus that y'all are working on is pretty fun. I like it. Alex, would you like to kick it off? And then Joaquim from Hifi DAO.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alex Strait, one of the co-founders of Hifi. And we have big announcements, to make because we are releasing the beta version on the 11th of October. So we will open the gate for everybody willing to use the technology and build a DAO. So that's a huge milestone for us, of course. A bit of background on the Hifi DAO. We've been building, the technology throughout the years, and in the context of the Seeds project, which is a regenerative currency and economy that we have built. So our roots are in regeneration, and that's really unique in our design because we are really inspired by nature in everything we do. So the design is really unique, and it's allowing organic growth, with trust and with this idea that the DAO can be efficient. It doesn't need to be inefficient or a space of conflict or incomprehension. It can be, a team working together towards the same purpose, And we have also this idea of an ecosystem, right, which is the bigger picture that brings a constellation of DAOs together to solve a problem, to solve an issue, a social issue, an ecological issue, so that, this energy can come together and really tackle those problems, right? And the overall vision is that we are creating the Hifi network, which is for us an impact economy that would invite, that will invite a lot of organizations, businesses, villages, communities, to join and to create a better version of our current economy and world. So we are engaged on this mission, and we are hoping that a lot of energy will come our way. And we have really put a lot of attention and effort, in building a framework that is flexible, customizable, because we know that we have so many different use cases, that we really need to cover. And really passionate about what Amanda and Sean have presented, because Gen Z will definitely be in the forefront of the DAO adoption in the next years. So really interested to connect more and create relationship there. Stop there.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Yakim?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm co-founder of Hifi as well. I'm joined 2019. So thank you, Alex, and thank you, Amanda and Sean. Love the Dream DAO and the idea of bringing really the DAOs to the next generation, right? This is all about how we're building this new kind of vessel, this new kind of vehicle, right? To bring it out there to larger and larger audiences, right? We all know it's still early days, Web3 space is just about the chasm there, but we're getting ready for this, and that's the exciting part. For me, this is the Hifi DAO as a third generation DAO, as I call it. Because, DAOs are evolving too, right? We're learning a lot, we're working a lot, we're reinventing really what it means to be part of an organization, right? And that doesn't have to look like a very traditional organization, right? Where you have bosses and where you get hired and you get fired, right? DAOs are an entirely different space that we are entering now. And as Alex said, right, it's not just this individual DAO, but much more importantly, how can we cooperate and coordinate our activities in these new DAO spaces that we're opening up, right? So it's about the ecosystem. It's about the DAO to DAO communication. It's about the value exchange between all the different players. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to bring the Hifi DAO to the EOS ecosystem and see where we can take it next. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks. That was a wonderful introduction. We'll get deeper into some of these topics, I'm sure, as we proceed. But now, turning to, let's see, who should we go to first? Take it away, Mo, if you would, please, from Upscale.
Yeah,
Maybe
thank you.
give us a little context on Upscale.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, Upscale is the rebranded version of Eden on EOS. It's kind of a bit of a history there, but just generally to say that I started with Eden on EOS Eden in 2020 and have progressed with them for the last 3 years, trying to focus on the governance aspects that DAO has put a lot of focus on, and building out the tooling for these use cases. And we've tried to reimagine what the use case for the DAO is supposed to be, looking for focus, and have arrived at an ambassador program, which would fit in with the Upscale new model and direction. So I've been elected as delegate once over the last 2.5 years, and now chief delegate twice, and been given the mandate to put the DAO in the direction of looking towards what it can best fulfill for the organizations that fund it. That should be some of the focus for these DAOs. Since we were given a fairly adequately funded treasury at the beginning, it was a question that had to be asked. And I think it's a really valid question for DAOs at their start to find out what their purpose is from the onset, so as to give them that direction, that the structure to build towards and to function. So yeah, as a chief delegate now, we've just been focusing on getting the bylaws straight, getting the tooling straight, getting a lot of the things that will be able to make that DAO function, and hopefully for the Web3 space also contribute to facilitating their having the advantages to build faster than we have. I think we've made a lot of inroads into that and have opened up a lot of those gates. So yeah, the focus of Upscale right now is as an ambassador program, with also a focus on the governance of how you do that.
Awesome. Thanks, Mo. And let's go to Patrick Novachoy next. Patrick, if you could just give us a little intro about yourself. We can get more into Upscale and other stuff later on and some further questions.
Yeah, hello everyone, happy to be here. So I am Nova Crypto founder, and since 2018 I am doing Merlin Ahmed EOS Swiss workshops with notable figures throughout the Antelope ecosystem. For example, recently, week September 25 until September 29, I had the chance to interview 6 notable figures into the Antelope networks, like, for example, Jesse Jaffe of the EOS Bees, Dominic Thomas of the Hifi DAO platform, doing a great interview about Hifi DAO, Daniel Keys of Pomelo, and about EOS Den, EOS Digital Extended Network. That's a project that I have begun in May 23rd, and I have interviewed my team, Vlad, Lennart, that are basically the backend developer behind the EOS Den. So EOS Den is a Web3 platform built on the EOS blockchain, and that connects affiliates, Web3 solution provider, networker, advertisers, and content creators with verified users on this platform. And I use what has been developed into EOS hidden on EOS, now Upscale, becoming Upscale, because there we have a Sybil protection mechanism. So for the EOS Den platform, we recognize automatically user coming from hidden on EOS or Upscale. We recognize also from Pomelo. Basically, we can connect with other platforms. That's what I am doing during this last month, since May 23rd. And I have the chance this year to be elected 2-time chief delegate and being with Mo and Gabriel during this term 7. So shout out to them, and happy to answer to any question further on. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. And Gabriel, take it away.
Thanks, Joy. Yeah, I wear, I guess, now a few DAO hats. Chief delegate for the community now known as Upscale, along with Mo and Patrick, who we've just heard from, and also a core member of Hifi DAO, along with Alex and Joachim, getting involved with Singularity Net, their side of decentralized governance and DAOs at the moment, which is very interesting, big challenge, and member of various 2021 DAO disasters. So we're talking here today about DAO adoption, and so interesting to get into some of the history lessons. My background is commercial focus across customer life cycles, including agile frameworks, which boils down to commercializing products and taking them to market. From that lens, DAOs have a lot of challenges, just as the Web3 industry does overall, which basically comes down to, can we reliably, efficiently monetize so we can keep the party going? My conception is towards TACs, TACs, temporary autonomous consortiums. So maybe we can get into a little bit of that.
All right, let's go around the room here. Maybe between all of us, we have a lot of speakers, so we could kind of each take turns from our representative organizations to tackle some of these questions. That would be awesome. Let's see here. So circling back to the crew from DreamDAO, perhaps one of you would like to speak to what are some of the things that make the communities in your DAO unique, and Yeah, what is your particular niche, if you will, in the DAO space? I guess
Yes.
whoever's inspired to speak to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think first is this intergenerational community that we have, right? We don't usually see much of this. Like, we talk about how champions are these guides and mentors, but we are all working together and trusting each other. And I think the fact that many of the things in the DAO, it's led by builders, which are like this 15 to 20 years old, and how the whole community trusting these very young people, it's something very unique. I can speak for myself, like the fact that you don't find many opportunities in in Brazil where I'm located, or in the digital world in general. This opportunity to just take things and do things for like this big community of over 100 people, and just advocate for them and do like actually work with them and to build these great things. So the fact that DAO gives this confidence and just motivate builders to work on things that they find meaningful, but also work with them to just, make the DAO thrive and just build this amazing ecosystem and community is definitely something that makes us unique. We truly believe that the kids will lead, right? So we are not just like building, these older generations are not just like building the DAO and letting the Gen Z just join them and see how it's happening. They are letting the Gen Z build, and they're just like, hey, if you need support, we are around. So I think that's very unique. And how we are always like bringing these builders to this, the first experience of them in the Web3 ecosystem. So usually it takes a while for you to like launch an internship or to have like a sponsorship to go to a conference, like to a Web3 conference like DevCon, East Mexico, on, or, NFT NYC. And we have been doing this with our builders. We place them with internships with social impactful Web3 organizations so they can gain confidence as contributors, but also put hands on working into these tasks so they can also prove that they have the tools and skills that you need to, make this ecosystem better. We are also, always funding them to travel together and meet in person and represent the DAO in a different country, in a different city, with all this Web3 community together. So I feel like this is something that makes us very like unique in the space, because you don't find many people in the Web3 right now just investing in Gen Z how we are. And I think that's really, really incredible. And we will definitely achieve amazing things with this work.
Great. Yeah, that's a really extraordinary kind of approach, I think, in terms of being so conscious about cultivating this next generation. And I know Alex or Joaquim spoke a little bit to that too. But going now to Hifi DAO, what is your kind of niche in the DAO space? And what you're more like a DAO toolkit than, but you're also a DAO too. So maybe you could kind of tease apart those two things for us a little bit and give us like the nugget of what you're all about.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Yeah. So for us, really, and I like to connect what Amanda just said about the community space itself. What we're doing with the Hifi DAO is building sort of a layered approach to say, hey, there's a core team, there's a nucleus in everything, every entity, every organization that you're trying to build there. And we want to provide that as a first building block, right? To say, hey, you have your core team coming together. It's maybe co-founders, maybe your friends, right? A way to come together and say, we're going to start something, we're going to build something. And it's not just a community space where we come together and have a good time. We actually do want to have a way to take action, right? To bring that forward. And for this, we believe sort of the Hifi DAO has a core, has a nucleus, right? But it doesn't stop there. The next stage from there is, well, you have a core team in place, you have maybe some roles, some circles, you build some structure inside the DAO, and then you expand that into, well, there's a whole community around us that is really interested in looking at what we're doing, right? And they want to engage in some level, right? And this is where we see sort of the next iteration happening, that we can bring in now this engagement, right, of people, of maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of people sitting in the community space to begin to interact with the DAO, right, and participate in the DAO in multiple ways, right? Gabriel mentioned, right? So for us, it's really to see how can we open up a collaboration space that is diverse enough, to invite community spaces, but also invite maybe other members from other organizations and say, let's come together how we tackle these difficult problems, right? So for us, that's kind of a layer 2 for the community that's surrounding the nucleus. And then there's layer 3, right? There's now, what do we do with the entire ecosystem, right? And this is where the journey gets really interesting, because suddenly you're now in a DAO to DAO space. You have to determine how do you actually interact, how do you communicate with other DAO players out there, right? Because you're not alone in this. And that's a critical shift again from thinking you are and you're competing against others, right? Towards a thinking that is, oh, we're going to solve these problems together. We're here to tackle these really difficult problems. So we have to connect, we have to exchange value and knowledge too, right? So this isn't something where people think, oh, this is why I'm sitting on my proprietary, IP stuff, I'm going to sell this. No, part of that is really open, right? It's open as a platform to say, let's join in, let's share the knowledge we already have acquired, right? And now bring in the others to make that space richer, right? To get into tapping really into the collective intelligence of larger communities. Because if you have so many voices out there, they will contribute. And if you've got a way to sort of tap into that and have a structure that supports that, I think this goes way beyond what's possible with today's more hierarchical organizations, right? Where there's a single boss sitting on top of the organization, and the vertical, chains go down and people execute on that stuff. Very little really cross organizational communication there. But with DAOs, you have the capacity to do that. And that's what we want to do, right? Reach out to these different communities, connect them, and make sure that we're all working together. One more example, I was at Climate Week here in New York City 2 weeks ago, and you can see how many initiatives, how many projects are being launched there. I mean, it's crazy to see all of these schedules and all of these presentations there. But what I feel is missing is the coordination, right? To say, hey, we're all coming together. How do we start to coordinate our activities? Recognizing that we're here, but then also exchanging the value, right? So that we create a movement. And that's important for me. DAO is not just an isolated single entity. It has the capacity to bring it into a movement space, right? That can really have a significant impact on, in this case, climate change, right? What are we actually doing to provide support for climate justice, for climate change activities, for environmental groups that are so much involved in this, bringing the passion into this, like you guys doing at DreamDAO, but then really get into sort of a mode that, hey, we're recognized, we're here together, and we have a plan going forward, right? By using a network of DAOs. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thanks, Joaquin. Mo, I want to go to you next. I know Upscale, I mean, this question is pretty appropriate for Upscale. What makes Upscale unique? What makes the communities in your DAO unique? And I know there's been a bit of soul searching there. So, and anyone else from the crew that wants to jump in on this too, but we'll try to keep these quick.
Well, I guess you could say that first, the thing that makes us the most unique would be the ingrained upvote structure that we have that allows us to select our delegates and select our representatives within the DAO. That was built in from the onset. So that helped us a great deal in electing good leadership, right? Speaking to Joaquin's point about the vertical structure of things, I think no matter what kind of an organization you have, you still need to have points of direction, points from where you get your cues from. And you need to select good leaders, and you need to have a way to do that. And to do that, originally Eden and now Upscale, we had the upvote process. So that would be a group of people, let's say a small group of people, basically get broken down into smaller groups and select a leader from amongst them. Those leaders from each small group get together once again and select a leader from amongst that group, and so on until you get to a point where you have a very small group of leaders at the very top, maybe a handful, 5, 3, that then the way that we're doing it is through Bitcoin headers randomly selecting the head chief delegate. In this case, Gabriel, while myself and Patrick are chief delegates. So in that way, you've already selected your leadership. Now, the other part of what also makes us unique and is the fund distribution. So it's automated in our DAO where it isn't reliant on anything, on any one person to do anything other than the actual code distribute the funding from the treasury. So it gives us the liberty and the freedom to not be tied to any one person, and in that way decentralizes fund distribution. So that way you have the governance and the treasury handled. The next question for us has then been, and what is the purpose of distributing these funds and governing, right? So these are the questions that we've had to answer, given that we were endowed with a treasury from the onset and a group of members that were willing to participate in this experiment. Through a lot of soul searching, we've landed on the ambassador program, where in this case, we're looking for organizations that we can represent and thus receive more funding for the treasury and be able to sustain ourselves rather than be reliant on grants or donations. So that's the way that we've handled that. Simultaneously, we're also, I guess you could say that having this vertical organizational structure and governance structure isn't enough. The other part of what we also developed is a WPS, a worker proposal system, where we are able to create these circles and groups within the DAO, fund them, and have them carry about fulfilling projects that we see of benefit to the organization. For example, tooling that facilitates the interaction within the DAO and makes us more accountable and transparent to each other within the DAO. And hopefully these will be open source tools that will also be leveraged through Hifi, which we are planning to merge onto in the coming, hopefully, weeks after launch. Yeah.
Great, Mo. I think you covered it pretty well. I'm going to keep us moving down the next couple questions here. We have some show notes, so you maybe are all looking at. I'm going to combine the next couple questions together. So I feel like we've covered a lot of some of the differences between a traditional organization and a DAO. If anyone wants to touch on that as we go through this, that would be cool. I'm also interested in the second part of this question, which is, what are the biggest differences between working in a DAO versus a traditional organization? That's kind of like part A, I guess. And then, are there any areas where a DAO is not appropriate or where you think a traditional organization might actually foot the bill better? Let's go back to what we haven't heard from Amanda or Shauna. Sean, if you want to speak to this.
Sean, do you want to go on this one?
Yeah, of course. I think in terms of, like just the benefits, right, that I think we've seen, it's just like the kind of instantaneous freedom for decision making. I think the one thing that has pulled me into the DAO space the most from my start, exploring back in 2020 was just the fact that, governance infrastructure is so easy to experiment with, right? In a different way that you can't have in a traditional organization. And I think then when it comes to DreamDAO, especially, just like one thing we have realized is that, like, aside from giving the opportunity for, young social entrepreneurs to build in the space and learn in this space while building, is like more than just something that is, a one take opportunity. It's also the kind of thing where you're reforming education as well, something that like you wouldn't really have a part in if you were just in a traditional organization per se, mostly in the sense of the fact that you're kind of like taking part, right, in building the new internet, but not only building the new internet, but also having like this opportunity to kind of partake in a global community, right, that you wouldn't particularly maybe, I mean, there's obviously a lot of organizations that are international and remote first and things like this that aren't particularly DAOs. But I think the fact that, one thing that we've seen a lot is just the fact that it's happening from the inception, and just that freedom or kind of permissionless nature to kind of act freely, maybe, and more so like just with how governance infrastructure works, right? Whether, it's through delegation or one person, one vote, having that freedom is something that I think is really reassuring, especially for the young builders. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Awesome. Do you want to add anything to that, Amanda? Or
Well, no, I agree with Sean. I think that only when it comes like to the second question of like this difference between working in a DAO and a traditional organization, like I didn't have the experience in working in a traditional organization yet. When I see things happening around, or when I'm like discussing with my friends and parents who work in traditional organizations, I see that, well, at least from the Dream DAO point of view, this part of like the transparency, it's something that it's really strong in our side, and I believe that in many DAOs as well. So there's no such a thing as like, well, this is not in your department, or this is not like, so you shouldn't be knowing, like everything that happens, we are always communicating with people and letting them know. And this honesty that it comes from like people who are leading at that moment to people who are just like, hanging around and being like this community, that's very, very important. And I think it's a very big difference. And also how you have this opportunity to rotate between, who is leading things now and who will be leading things after. So it's just like this very big community with a common goal, and they build for each other but also for a bigger cause. And I think that's really, really important. I think it's one of the biggest differences that really makes me wanting to keep working with DAOs, in my future. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
great, thanks. A lot of good points there. I'm wondering if Gabriel, if you have anything to add to this. I feel like you have a very particular take on this one.
Yeah, I was like chomping at the bit there. Thank you,
Mhm.
love you for the opportunity. There are so many things to say. I think I'll just speak for myself, right? I work with other DAOs, but I just need to speak for myself so it's authentic. I think we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater in some ways. I think just as Amanda has expressed there, that she hasn't actually worked with traditional companies, and so her vision of what a DAO is going to be different to people who perhaps have worked for 20 years in different corporations. So it's just a really interesting mixing pot of perspectives, and the fact that we don't necessarily agree on the definitions of what a DAO really means, right? What does decentralized mean? Or autonomous mean? Is it automated, which was one of the original conceptions of a DAO, right? Smart contracts that enable trustless interactions and kind of get rid of the humans. And then we've got the idea of autonomy, which is something that I forget the name, but I think Amanda's partner there spoke to, which is freedom of choice. We get to choose what to do. And then we caveat that at the end with the word organization. So what does that mean? What is an organization? Well, something about being organized, right? Something towards having shared goals or a purpose. And how do we blend those things together? Decentralize, whatever that means, is distributing decision-making power, which is a little bit like with the autonomy of ownership, or even the word ownership. In Hifi, we've kind of debated that of does one person own one role, or is it shared, or is there no such thing as ownership and it's kind of all just collaborative space? It's a thick soup in the mixing pot of different ideas. So in terms of DAO adoption, I think there's going to be a couple of vectors or trajectories. One is that we're going to find the niches, and DAOs will manifest in different ways. There'll be lots of flavor of DAO because of the bylaws and the policies and the tooling that we have. Tooling is evolving, but it's slower in terms of its evolution now. Hifi has a brand new platform being released, but I think the thing that needs to accelerate is the processes. And I think Hifi is just on the cutting edge of doing that, because we've got the tooling, which is again being released in the beta platform, but then it comes down to process. How do you actually use this in order to achieve what we say that we want to achieve as an organization with shared organizational purpose? Yes, transparency is somewhat of a distinction, It was a comment made to me recently in one of the conversations that in corporations that it's just all about self-interest and greed and suppression, and you can't make any decisions, and everything comes down from the top. Well, having experienced corporations for 15 years, I can say that's maybe true for half of them, but it's certainly not true for all of them. There are incredibly kind, gentle, inclusive people who work in non-DAO organizations. So again, I think we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's a tremendous amount of best practice that we can glean from what's happened traditionally. We've got to be very careful that we're saving the baby, keeping the baby, supporting and nurturing this thing that we want to see grow, which is more humanized approaches to collaboration. And then I think we're going to get an innovation in process for DAOs moving forward. Just to round off, the idea of a TAC, temporary autonomous consortium, is basically that, people can collaborate and it might only be temporary. So instead of monolithic DAO entities that maybe exist for many, many, many years, if not forever, is the dream of it might just be a short-term collaboration that finishes kind of like the gig economy. I'm interested to see how Gen Z folk respond to this idea that, you might have a collaboration with a few people, you get together, it's a temporary autonomous consortium, you get the job done, you do the compensation, you track the value flows or the impact, and then you move on, you disband and you go and do something else. So I think that's an opportunity that maybe hasn't been super considered for what DAOs can be. And so again, this ecosystem is going to grow. The Hifi network is a big vision and part of how one approach to manifesting that will happen. And so we have different groups, individuals becoming members of DAOs, short-term as quests or long-term as roles, and then disbanding maybe, or just going off and doing something else. So a big mix of ideas there. The essence there is that we're in one of the most innovative spaces, doing very, very important things. And I don't think anyone has all of the answers yet, except for me, of course. Thanks.
I knew I could count on you. Real quick, what would be the difference between a temporary autonomous consortium? Also a big fan of like the TAZ concept in general, the temporary autonomous zone, and the original sense of the corporation, which was really only ever intended to just get together, build a bridge, and then be done when you're done with the bridge, or move on. Is there a significant difference, or?
Well, no. So there's a massive, I don't know what to call it, ecosystem or trend in big industry called third-party management. And this is the realization, a really good segue, really big realization that companies might end up getting smaller and smaller. And if you watch some of the podcasts, I think it's Tim Bilyeu, guy, I won't remember the name, but he said organizations, exponential organizations, for example, the author of Exponential Organization book, he said teams or companies can be two people, a technical person and a creative person, essentially. And because of the power or the acceleration of technology, they can, for $500 and all of the modern tools that we have available, they can create a organization that required tens of people, lots of capital investment, and tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. So the nature of business is changing. The corporation can be a lot smaller and still scale. Instagram, I think, had 11 people by the time it scaled to greatness and sold for billions. So maybe it's a legal thing. Maybe it's just it's easier to just collaborate with people as a temporary autonomous consortium. As independent contractors, you got to run your own company. You got to be legally compliant. But it doesn't mean as a traditional organization that you actually have to go through the motions of setting up a new legal entity, the expenses, the time, the compliance that's involved with that. So maybe that's part of the difference. But again, I think it's super open innovation space.
Brilliant, thanks. Well, you kind of segued us into the adoption question, which is nice. Maybe we'll come back to Hifi, which we haven't heard from him in a minute. So Joachim or Alex, if you want to take this, what do you think are some of the biggest hurdles that DAOs still need to overcome to see adoption. And Chris, if you want to respond to anything that Gav said, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I wanted to come back to the comparison, because that's the starting point, the comparison between, current organizations. And I think what is really different is that it's a more organic, more human-driven organism, so it's a living system as opposed to a rigid, well-established framework that we have experienced for the last 30, 40 years. And not adapted to our challenges. And I think the main differences for me, it's about collaboration over competition. It's about a context, right? And that's what we are trying to create with the Hifi network, this huge impact economy, right? Collaboration network where we can transparently work together without strict boundaries, because, you can, as a member, as a human being, work in 3 DAOs, 4 DAOs, and Gabriel is one example of that, because he's involved in so many projects. So that's really the type of economy, the type of fulfillment that we are looking at when evolving and working into a DAO context. And there's another element which is really about the being co-invested in the success, in the value generated, and in the impact created. In traditional organizations, you don't get to receive this kind of reward, right, attached to your contribution. You are associated to a role with different salary bands and things like that. In the DAO context, whatever impact you create, whatever value you share with the ecosystem, you will be rewarded, for your efforts, for your skills, for your wisdom, whatever you bring to the project. And to come back to the adoption, I think these two aspects, right? Collaboration, common good, and this idea that we are individually contributing to something bigger, plus this idea that we can be co-invested in the success of the project, are the main education factor, I think, for massive transition to the DAO space. So to answer to your question, it's about education, and it's great, with Dream DAO, for example, that this education is delivered to the youngest generations, because that will take time, definitely, to let go of, all the principles that we've learned in the university or school that are really focusing on, consumption, competitivity, these kind of concepts. And I think that's really the barrier. It's more at the psychological level, the emotional level, and requires introspection from every human being transitioning to this space. And one of, the key factor of our growth strategy and adoption strategy is indeed to being the bridge, between Web to help transitioning to Web3. And we are creating services, education materials, and also leveraging the entire Hifi network for that to happen. So, we are creating with service DAOs, consultancies, experts in various domains, all the conditions for DAOs that are forming and members joining the ecosystem to be guided, to be accompanied, during this human transition to a new space. So, so that's my perspective. I think the transition is inevitable. What we don't know is when it will happen and how fast it will happen. Because what is certain is that the youngest and younger generations want to have more flexibility, more creativity, more passion in their daily life, working life, right? If we can still talk about work even, because when you're passionate about a project, it's actually a pleasure to spend time on it. So it's all these shifts, right, in terms of adoption that are the human level that needs to be conveyed and accompanied. That's my take on it.
Great. Thanks, Alex. Patrick, do you have any thoughts on adoption, and what are some of the barriers for user onboarding? And if you're still around, I know you kind of dipped in and out for a second.
Yeah, thank you. About the onboarding, what is really important now, it's to have verified users onboarding on any platform that you are creating. You want really to have users that are qualified, that are knowledgeable, and to be able to do so, you need some checking. You have to check the user what they are doing. You need a proof of work system. So to come back to the DAO, decentralized autonomous organization or decentralized autonomous corporation or currency, because there is also the DAC part of it. It's not enough to just have a DAO with people really passionate and collaborating 1+1=3 that want to drive the ecosystem. And beyond this ecosystem of the DAO, the other ecosystems, you need also to have some great tooling embedded into those DAOs. And one tooling very important, it's the proof of work system. Because you cannot just come in a DAO and say, oh, I have great ideas, I am a mathematician, or I am a physicist, or I am someone very intelligent. You don't need just to do your, let's say, apology of yourself. You need to do the work. You need to do the work. We have to check the work. We need to check that the actions have been made. And the beauty is, because we have Web3 solutions with a smart contract and actions on-chain, we can check if the work has been made. If we don't have Web3 solution and we just have Web2 solutions that are not on-chain and no smart contract, who can say that the work has been made? That's the lead of the or working group, that's synonym. So the lead has to check that the worker, and to do so, you need a tooling. So that's the proof of work system with a bounty assigned to it. So a combination of tool, very smart, combined, led to a good check of the work into a DAO. So the DAO has to be very structured and really well exactly organized, thanks to a worker proposal system, thanks to working groups and circle. And the governance is embedded into this DAO. It's IT data governance and embedded data governance, and the people doing the work. So there is a shift, there is a mindset shift now. We understand that the people that deserve to receive something are the people that are doing the work, not just people coming and say what they want to do, because we can all say what we want to do. That's very easy. But doing the work, it's another part. And it's not about just one day, it's about every day, every minute, every second. So, and we can check that. It's through smart contract. That's the big differences for me with the big mastodont for who I have worked along with those company, with CEO, CTO, CMO, all those titles that you want to assign to those people. When you create something in a normal company, the software that you are creating is belonging to the company. In the DAO, the software and the service that you are creating are belonging to the users that will use this tool, this software. So that's totally decentralized into this sense. The data are distributed at the most, and that's what I love to be in a DAO, or let's say into the Web3 landscape. So I think there is a long way to go with the DAO. That's just the beginning, like said Alexandre. And yeah, now it's a matter to know when that will come, when will come the big bang. But I think we are at the base of that. We are creating this for the new generation coming. And I hope that we will see that during our living. But I think the DAO space is really evolving for 2024. The next, we hope, all the next bull run. I hope we will be ready. And that's when we are into the situation like now, where all is a little bit stopped with the price or those kind of things that we have to be very, very, to do the build, to build the things. So yeah, that's my little opinion on this, little human on this earth.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. I thought that was an excellent point about the need for structure and accountability, which kind of comes into the whole adoption and onboarding side of things is very interesting. It's like, and I know Hifi has spoken a little bit to this too, with the need for education. These all kind of go hand in hand. It's like it's a tall ask. I mean, on a previous space, somebody was talking about how coming into a DAO is a bit daunting because there's so many levers to pull, and suddenly you're in control. It's not like a one size fits all kind of system that we're all accustomed to stepping into, maybe from the previous traditional, more corporate space. Does anyone else want to offer any thoughts on what it's like, or how we can make user onboarding and adoption for DAOs a little more seamless? I'm just going to kind of open the floor up for our speakers.
Yeah, thanks. I can jump in here with some thoughts on that. I mean, yes, entering a DAO requires a whole level of sort of reorientation, rethinking of how collaboration can look like in these new spaces, right? We're so used to, at least, people who have worked long enough in corporate environments, to have certain structures in place, that are now looking different in a DAO space. And that to me is the fascinating aspect. You can really rethink what it means to have an HR department inside a DAO space. How does finance look inside a DAO space? How does marketing look like in a DAO space? So there's so many sort of building blocks that can be reconsidered and really, adapted to the needs of how we're working. What is also interesting for me is the onboarding process itself. This isn't like the traditional hiring process, right? You don't have to go through 20 interviews, talk to HR, talk to the department heads until you even get to a point where they consider you to work for that organization, right? DAO is entirely different, right? You can just invite them in. You can say, hey, look around, we have some circles that are interested in, adding more people to that. Why did you join them, right? Why did you grab a quest, let's say, right, and work on a temporary project? And we see how you can establish sort of the level of trust and the level of expertise that you said you would bring to the table, right? We're really no longer looking at sort of resumes here and background checks that all going, out the door. We can really see people as they are, right? And ideally in an environment, if you're adapting to this environment, enough, you can be who you are, right? It's your true self that can shine through here. And you don't have to pretend to be someone else, right? You don't have to sort of make sure, you have, people liking you up and down the chain. You don't need to do this. You come, you have a role, you grab on a role, people vote on this, right? And say, yes, full agreement, that was great what you did there, do more of it, right? And then continue to work. So coming back to the sort of the onboarding process and lowering really the barriers to entry, that's one of the key goals here, right? You don't have to have big barriers and go through all of these processes and interviews to get into a DAO. No, we want to see you. We want to see who you are and what you're capable of once you're joining the DAO, right? And then you move from there, right? So a lot of these traditional assumptions of this is how an organization needs to work will go out the door. I know Gabriel is pointing towards, there's some good stuff. I mean, the traditional form as it is, 100 years old or so, when Frederick Taylor and Ford, created this highly efficient machine, right? That, helped us to go through the industrial age. It got us where we are today, right? Without that machinery, we wouldn't be able to sort of say we have created industries, we have millions of jobs out there, we have created all of this because of how we thought, an organization can run as an efficient machine. Perfectly valid, right? But I think this is shifting now. To me, I'm very bullish on DAOs going forward. And one more thing, because I need to drop off too, I wanted to say, one more thing about adoption, right? So for me, adoption is about, can DAOs go mainstream, right? Are they becoming mainstream or not? Are we there yet? Right, the question. For me, we see a lot of signals. We actually see the signs showing up on the horizon that yes, this is probably true. This is probably true every, as in the internet, every 20 years, some major paradigm shift is happening. Last time it was the commercial web, right? It was the ability to actually open online stores and sell your stuff online. Nobody thought this was possible at that time. They said, I'm going to go to my brick and mortar store. I don't trust what's going on, in these new spaces where I give my personal information out there. That completely shifted, and nobody thinks about the credibility and how we transitioned into this highly commercial but also highly centralized and extractive space, right? Now we're seeing another transition into the decentralized web. 20 years later, hey, there's another paradigm shift happening. And I think we see the signs, right? Alex talked about education and training, that organization, institutions, colleges, universities, they want to learn more about this stuff. What is this Web3 stuff about, right? We got invited to several where we're presenting what the DAO is, right? There's a lot of mainstream media coverage out there. There's a beginning of enterprise adoption out there where enterprises rethink, can we restructure the organization? There's so much disengagement here. Can we now begin to adopt a new structure, flatter structure, a holonic structure of an organization? And DAOs provide that, right? Also on the regulatory side, keep in mind, there's a lot of clarity coming in now with what is this token thing. In Europe, we have MiCA, the markets and crypto assets regulation, that really defines clearly, hey, this is a utility token versus, hey, this is a security token, right? There's support there. There's also support in the many sort of traditional forms of how do you legally define an organization, right? Similarly to an LLC model, there's DAO models now. These are all signs to me to say, whoa, this is coming. And if it's coming, this is going to be big. Because think about that, on the planet, there are about 330 million companies, right? Registered entities, right? In all kinds of forms. 330 million is nothing compared if you unleash sort of the possibility of every single group, every single project, every single community can launch their own DAO, right? Go out there and have an impact. That is tremendous. And that goes way beyond that number for me. And that's why I'm so bullish about that. So thanks again. Back to you.
You got some people honking horns in celebration with big DAO supporters out there. Awesome. That was great. You raised a lot of interesting points. I feel like Gav is wanting to say something now because I can hear myself talking, and that usually only happens when Gav's mic is unmuted.
Sorry. So yeah, if I can. So a few defining factors, I think, relevant for what it kind of helping to define a DAO. I think it's about sharing value creation rather than the traditional old model of owners at the top of the chain. They squeeze out most of the profit or the value that's created in an organization. I think distributing, decentralizing the revenue share or value share is key. I think transparency, which was mentioned earlier, I think Amanda, 100%, I think that is a philosophical defining factor of what doing a DAO is. And then there's this third one, which I think maybe is kind of contentious, it's difficult to wrestle with, is I'm going to call it meritocracy. So Patrick said it comes down to doing the work, right? Doing the work. We have to get stuff done. That's true across any type of organization. An organization has a purpose. We need to do whatever to work towards that purpose. That purpose might be throwing parties on Saturday nights. Whatever it is, we need to do that work. And so if we think about structure, and I've worked on this before, trying to be very, finding the primitives of what does that mean to do the work? Well, we have to define the work, then we have to prioritize the work, we have to somehow assign or adopt the work, we need to actually contribute to the work, and we need to be compensated for the work. Maybe in the future, money won't be a thing, everything will be free and abundant, and we won't need to think about compensation, then it will just be pursuing our creativity. But I think we can agree for the time being, we need a way to be compensated for our contributions, our efforts. So the question then in the middle is, doing those things, who gets to define the work? How do we prioritize the work? How do we make those assignments? If there's 3 people that want to do the same thing, do we split it up into 3 things and they all have to work together and they're going to take a third of the value created? Do we vote to appoint people that, yeah, you can do it, but you can't because of popularity or favoritism or maybe reputation or maybe because they have the right skills for the job? We've got to have some kind of a decision-making process, mechanism to do all of these things that allow us to do the work. And I think that's part and parcel of the future of DAO adoption, is this idea of meritocracy. How do we enable people on whatever basis that system decides so that we can achieve organizational purpose more reliably, achieve better results than not? I kind of see results as relevant and important. Again, maybe some DAOs think, well, this is just having a party and we don't care if, the party goes well per se. As long as we have a party, it's all good. So then that's the result that they want to create. And then it matters less on the meritocracy of the people who are ordering the cutlery and the drinks and the food and whatever. So again, I think sharing value, transparency, and meritocracy are things that we're going to have to battle with in this DAO space to achieve adoption from now into the future.
Thanks, Gav. Great thoughts. This whole meritocracy thread and kind of the way that DAOs can perhaps, I don't know if outcompete is the right word, but create a different space for folks looking to enter into an organization where traditional organizations might have had more barriers to entry. DAOs can perhaps create an entry that is more like, show us what you got and, take the quest and we'll see if we like each other and, get more and more involved. I'm curious, while we're on this topic, if Mo or Amanda have anything that you want to share on this.
Let me just hop in then really quickly. As Joaquin was talking, and I think Gabriel touched on a lot of the key points, but one thing that really stood out to me was the idea that ambiguity, I would see, is the enemy of a DAO. The clearer you can be with your purpose and your mission, the easier it'll be to move forward and to create value and be productive. Once you enter a situation where there's too much ambiguity, you'll likely face a community that will lose interest and will start to die off. So that's key: clarity and transparency, and having a system where you can identify the work that needs to be done, as Patrick was touching on, and then evaluating that work effectively was done, as Gabriel was touching on. So yeah, then to drive it back to your original question, Brandon, the issue of onboarding, I see this as secondary, even though I know that everyone wants to see as many people get involved with DAOs as possible. I think the key question to ask is, what is the purpose of the DAO that you're wanting people to get involved with? So it might be a DAO that doesn't really require that many members, and it might be a DAO that requires a lot of members. And depending on that, then you should evaluate how easy it should be to enter that DAO or not. So you'll raise the bar of entry to DAOs that maybe are creating more value and might need to distinguish more between the people that they're allowing to enter and those that they're excluding. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's important to have those metrics. So then the question of Sybil comes in, where you want to make sure that there's only one member representing one account within your DAO, and you can attribute the value that they're creating to them and not others, or not allowing people to game your system. So these are all questions that come into play with DAO creation.
Thanks for those thoughts, Mo. The ambiguity gave me a chuckle, because we know that's certainly a place you can end up in. Is, what are we doing here? What is this for? Which can be very problematic. Amanda, do you have anything you want to add to this thread?
Yeah, for sure. I think when it comes to onboarding new people into the DAO, I do really agree that was said before about how people can join and they kind of jump into the work they want to do, right? And I think that's an incredible way of opening these communities. Like when you have a DAO, there's more like a community than a startup, for example. Just opening this for people to jump in and kind of collaborate and move around and actually just like create these relationships. That's really important. But I do really think that this onboarding people, it's more about how the DAO's mission and also the values of this person match. So when you're like around any space, you're always looking for communities, for more people and also organizations and companies that are doing things that you care about, right? So when you find these DAOs like sharing about what they are doing and what they want to achieve, if you resonates with that, then you will automatically want to be part of it. But then you need the DAO, the community, to be welcome with you. And I think right now, what I have seen is that these DAOs are really welcome. And if we keep doing this way, that we'll be really successful in onboarding new people. And just, when they join, you actually like integrate them into your community. Like you don't need to give them a role, but just keep this conversation going and try to see like how you can have this relationship happening. It's not only about working together, but also about creating things together and kind of advocating for each other. I think that's really important. But I also think about how we can also bring like these DAO features into existing communities and to existing organizations, because that's also a way to, present other people what a DAO is. And hey, we have these features about like voting, about voting members, about decentralization, that it can go in multiple ways, right? Like Gabriel was saying, we have the automatization that can also go into multiple ways. But once you present these ideas, and if they think they can fit into their organization at some point, they might be willing to then turn that into a DAO in the future, or just build a new DAO or join a DAO. That will also help us on bringing more people into adopting the DAO space.
Brilliant. Thanks. Yeah, I love the just open, welcoming kind of atmosphere that the DAO philosophy. I don't know if it's a universally shared philosophy, but it feels very welcoming when I talk to people involved in the DAO space, in contrast to the other former situation. Any thoughts from you, Alex, on how folks can stay in touch and get involved with what Hifi's working on? And then we can just go around the room and take care of that bit of housekeeping so everyone knows how to reach you.
Yes, thanks, Brandon. Yes, so as I was saying at the beginning of the call, we are opening the gate for the beta version on the 11th of October. So there will be, of course, additional communications around that. But if you are interested to get involved, to become a member, create a DAO, you can go to hifi.earth, our website, a brand new website, by the way, and register your interest, create an account, and see for yourself, that DAOs are doing, what they are creating together, and see if you want to get involved. And what we have also underway is this idea that we are creating different roles in the Hifi network. So we have the ambassador badge, the affiliate badge that allows people who are bringing DAOs to benefit from the value flows that come from that. We have service DAOs, consultant badge DAOs, and developer badge, right? So that's a range of possibilities, if you like, that is available for everybody to participate, to collaborate, because our task is gigantic, if you like, and we are really welcoming. We were talking about how welcoming these spaces are, but we are clearly welcoming every talent, every people willing to participate, because we believe that, there's work for everybody and space for everybody to express their passion and their skills.
Amanda, would you like to give a little shout out and let folks know how they can get involved in your project?
Yeah, for sure. So for Gen Z, we'll be opening builder applications really soon, between mid-October and the beginning of November. So between those dates, that will be launched. Right now, we are with Champions application. So our mentors, voting members, who are not only, helping us build this decentralized community, but also around to support our builders, be chaperones, doing travel conferences, mentors, doing our mentorship program, speakers doing our learning together sessions. And yeah, usually for that, we requires that a champion has a previously Skywalker Z NFT, and the purchase is now live. So you can might want Skywalker Z doc DreamDAO doc. And if you don't have the bandwidth to become a champion, you can just become a Skywalker Z holder. That is our community supporters who are always around, joining our learning together sessions, getting updates on what's going on in the DAO, and that in the future they can become champion if they want. We are always around in Twitter, DreamDAO. I think we have a tweet pinned in this space, so we can just jump right there. DreamDAO.xyz is our website, and then you can find in the top corner the link to our Discord. We are pretty active in there, so you can jump in. I'll be onboarded as a friend of the DAO. So if you want to have like a meeting, a sync with one of our builders to learn more about what we are doing and how you can contribute, you can just jump in and open a ticket. And we are always looking for learning together hosts. So if you're interested in giving a lecture or like a workshop, in hosting one of these things to our Gen Z and champion community, you can just DM me and we can see how we take from there. Thank you for inviting us.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thanks, Amanda. It's been a pleasure to have you. Perhaps we can do it again sometime. And Gav, would you like to give us the lowdown on Upscale?
So I think the essence of Upscale, in my mind, and we're still deliberating on how to express it, but it's what I said originally, the commercialization factor. We are looking for ways to become self-funding, to monetize the community. And again, I think this is missing in a lot of Web3 projects and attitudes, that we've inherited this amazing gift of tokenizing something and raising lots of money for it. And then there's transaction fees that can be dispersed to a foundation. And this happens across the board in the Web3 sector. Upscale is realizing and deciding that we want to try and be self-empowered and self-funded. So we're not intending to launch a token, at least anytime soon. It hasn't really been part of the discussion, but just back to brass tacks of what can we do as a organization to monetize. And we're looking at building a web platform and a website that is community owned, where members can contribute services, software, educational content, etc. If we can build up traffic, then we can make sales for the community, share those funds accordingly to the contributions that are made from community members, and support the treasury. And then if we can have sizable traffic, then we can also add some level of advertising revenue opportunity, partnerships, and different things we can do. So that's the essence, I think, the way that I look at it for what Upscale is moving towards. The website is almost ready for first version release. So help me out, Patrick or Mo, where can people currently go to be in touch? Is it our Twitter account maybe is the best place?
The Twitter account, or maybe the Telegram, the Eden on EOS public channel. If you reach out there, you'll likely get a response.
Yeah, so Eden on EOS in Telegram, and just say you're interested in Upscale, or follow the Twitter account Upscale Now, I think is what it ended up being. Maybe Upscale Now IO. Patrick, do you remember? Do you have that at hand?
So the Twitter account for Upscale precisely is Upscale Now IO. So that's the handle, Upscale Now IO. That's the Twitter chief delegate account rebranded into Upscale. And to complete what just Gabriel stated about the Upscale Now IO, that is a platform, which is a platform. And it's a platform for different things. First is a platform as a new way to monetize software. So Upscale Now, you can see it as a new way to monetize software. Not yet tokenize, but at least first to monetize. And you have not to be in fear of that. It's not the new mastodon that will eat you. That's indeed a co-shared platform where you, as a human, you can decide what you want to co-share with the community. For example, you are already doing workshops and you want to do that under the umbrella of Upscale. You can decide to make some workshops for the Upscale community. Or let's say you are already doing a system of dispute resolution, or let's say a proof of work system. You can decide, okay, I will go to Upscale under the umbrella and I will do this specifically for this community that will generate a lot of traffic, because the new website coming will be in contact with Hifi DAO platform. Upscale itself can become possibly a service DAO connected on Hifi, not merge, not embed, but really connect, because the paradigm is to do collaborative, iterative, meaning you connect your ecosystem between yours. You connect your platforms between. So you have the Upscale Now IO, that is a platform. You have maybe EOS Den, that is a platform. You have Job Board by Mel Pierce, that is here, shout out to him, that is a platform. You have the Reputation System by Mo, which is a platform. You have everywhere platform, and you have to connect those platforms between them, not by merging them, but just by connecting them, and you make 1 + 1 = 3. And that's not something abstract in the universe somewhere with violence and Muppets. And that's not something totally abstract. That's something really concrete. 1 + 1 = 3. And you have not to read books for that. You have just to do the things from the heart first, to going through the soul, and then to the mind, and then you have the good fruits. You have not to think about the money first. You have to think about collaboration, doing things intelligently. And I think Upscale Now IO, we reached a consensus on this during this term 7 with this new brand, and I am very happy to be part of this. Very happy to go to the next term 8 with this mission, with the values that we have defined, with Upscale, and let's go. We have to upscale. So now it's the time. So I encourage everyone to go on Twitter account, Upscale Now IO. You find there the trailer for the next election, a nice video. You can register on the website genesiscommunity.org. You have the link. Go there and register. The next election is for October 7 at 1 p.m. UTC, and you have until October 6 at 1 p.m. UTC to register. The numbers are growing because the people see what we are doing, and they will go to the next election very motivated, and I encourage everyone to join. So very happy with Upscale. I think you have all the link now. You can go there and inflate the balloon. Thank you.
All right. Epic closing thoughts from Pat Noah Joy. Thank you so much. So yeah, everyone can...
Yeah, baby, yeah.
People can check out Dream DAO. They are here on Twitter, DreamDAO_ at DreamDAO. And then we've got Hifi DAO, pretty straightforward there, and Upscale Now IO, multiple people here. So check those projects out. They're all pretty awesome, doing great work in the DAO space, as you just heard today. And we can expect more exciting spaces like this. If you want to continue the conversation, anyone is welcome to spill on into the EOS Discord server and jump into the voice chat there and keep talking DAOs or anything that you want to talk about. We'll see y'all again next time, and come back around for another ENF hosted Twitter Spaces. Until then,
Absolutely.
ciao for now.
Thank you, Lovejoy.
Yep. Yeah, it's been fun.
Thank you. Have a nice
Thank you,
day.
Joy. You are the best Lovejoy in the galaxy.